If you need to check a GL account posting, you can use the General Ledger app Display Line Entry, F2218. The difference between this app and the app Display Line Items in the General Ledger, F2217, is that this report shows the entry view and the other report shows the General Ledger view. What this means is that the entry view shows the postings exactly as they've been made, but the General Ledger view includes document splitting. Document splitting, if implemented, takes place when, for example, you post a credit of 1,000 to a vendor and then post 2 debits to 2 different profit centres or segments. Because the vendor has to have a profit centre and each profit centre has to balance back to 0 in document splitting, the system will split the vendor posting into 2 line items in the background. If you look at the supplier account or any report showing the entry view, you'll only see the 1 line item, but the General Ledger view will show 2 items adding back to the original amount. Manage Purchase Orders F0842A. This slide and the next slide show purchase order reports, which are perhaps more useful for the procurement department, but I thought it worth to include so that you're aware of them in case you need to check or review something. Maybe there was a typo in the purchase order number, for example. Here you can see a list of all the purchase orders, their status, amount, and so on. This subsection covers apps that show key performance indicators or KPIs. In accounts payable, a lot of the apps have KPIs on the face of the app. So, for example, in the slide, I can see that the days payable outstanding is 116.6, and I can then click on the app to go into it for further details. The apps in the report are standard apps, but I could also go into one of the reports and save a variant for a specific company code, specific suppliers, specific banks, etc., and then save my own tile just for that variant. Even if I don't mention it, most, if not all, of the tables can be exported to Excel. The Overdue Payables app, F1746, behaves similar to the invoice processing and discount reports, shown in more detail in section 4. The opening screen shows the total amount of critically and uncritically overdue items, based on the value in the critical overdue threshold field in the standard filter bar. There's also the quick filter in blue just underneath, where you can select, for example, company code. You can run the report by company code, supplier group, block reason, and by supplier. You can also show each supplier split by intervals of 30 days. Using the double arrows, you can also add, for example, currency, document status, for example, normal or parked, and GL account. The slide shows the same app, but with a different type of chart. But there are, of course, many other options such as pie chart, bubble chart, scatter chart, etc. And you can, of course, change the chart type and change the axis. And you can show as a table. The Future Payables app, F1743, is similar to the Overdue Payables app, with a standard filter and quick filter, but showing amounts due in the future rather than overdue. You can run the report by chart or table, and by company code or the supplier top 10, and you can add in other dimensions such as country, payment block, region, etc. You can change the 3 intervals which currently default in as 30, 60 and 90 in the slide, and you can change the axes around. The logic to this app, Days Payable Outstanding app F1740, is quite similar to the previous ones, with the two filters, the choice of chart or table, and different criteria that you can choose to report by, such as timeline, company code, supplier to 10 highest or lowest DPO. You can also show a further hierarchy by using the downward pointing arrows to add other criteria. For example, with the main criteria as a company code, you can have a second criteria as supplier or period or country or all three. If you want further detail or the exact calculation logic, again, you can either use the Help button or check the Fiori library documentation. The Days Payable Indirect Method app F2895 is very similar to the F1740 app, but calculates the DPO on an aggregate level. For more details, there's a link to the app documentation in the Fiori app library. There are several apps to measure the DPO, or Days Payable Outstanding, which is the average number of days it takes to pay supplier invoices. To see more about the app or logic of the calculation, you can go to the app in the Fiori library and follow the links to the relevant app documentation. The two that follow the layout of the slide are Days Payable Outstanding Detailed Analysis app F2688 and Days Payable Outstanding Indirect Method Detailed Analysis app F2896. The special thing about these apps is that they're examples of analysis path frameworks. This type of app allows you to save a set of analyses from different viewpoints, which you can see in the path on the left. Each of the steps on the left shows a specific analysis, for example by time or company code. To create a new path, you simply add the analysis steps as required. There's also a separate app not covered in this tutorial called the APF Configuration Modeler app F1768, which enables you to create other analysis path frameworks by using predefined elements such as charts, tables and filters. Here I will demonstrate the Days Payable app Detailed Analysis app F2688. But the principle is the same for other analysis path framework apps, just with different options. First, I can click on the Create New, or as it's empty, I will start by adding an analysis step by clicking on the Add button at the bottom left. I choose Company Code, then DPO by Company Code, and finally Column Chart. This gives the first analysis step. I can then add a new analysis step. This time I choose Time, DPO over Time, and then Line Chart. Let's have a third step with Supplier, DPO by Supplier, and then Column Chart. If I make a mistake, there's a little X to the right of the step so that I can delete just that step. In each step I have a few options on the right that I can change, such as expand to full screen, or I can switch to a table, export to Excel and so on. At the top there are various filter options. I go back to the chart format and I can save the group of 3 charts that I've created as an analysis path. You can call it how you want, but I'm using my initials for speed. I can create and save a number of different paths for different purposes. By clicking on a step, I can jump between the different charts, and the next time I use the app, I can simply select the path with the 3 charts already set up how I want. The Aging Analysis app F1733 allows you to see when the outstanding amounts will be due for payment to help you plan the cash flow, and so that you have the right amount of money available for the payment runs. The amount on the face of the app is the total overdue payables. In the filter bar, you can choose the key date, for example, today, yesterday, tomorrow, last day of the month, quarter or year, and so on. You can also choose the number of days the aging is split into, for example 30, and the number of ranges, for example 4. The Invoice Processing Time app F1745, which we've already seen in section 4, includes the invoice processing analysis and the invoice processing time. In the slide we see the due and overdue amounts of invoices posted each period. The slide shows the invoice processing analysis with the same app ID, F1745. As the name implies, this app analyses the numbers and amounts of invoices and line items that have been posted, usually by period, by supplier, by user, and by status, such as cleared, blocked, parked, and so on. In the slide, you can see that you can drill down further into the data that's shown in the chart by selecting relevant areas. So you can see that period 6 is highlighted. For example, if I choose the 375 in period 6, I will be able to see the 375 invoices by supplier, user, or in this case I'll choose processing status. The slide shows that processing status of the invoices selected in the previous slide, namely the amounts and numbers in period 6, split by blocked, cleared, and free for payment. We already saw the cash discount utilisation app, F1736, but this is just a reminder. Again, you can check the application logic by following the links in the app in the Fiori app library. And we also saw the cash discount forecast app, F1735 in section 4. By including the payment block criteria, you can see how much cash discount may be lost because invoices are blocked and cannot be paid. The supplier payment analysis app, F1750, shows open payments which have not been allocated against an invoice, usually where the payment was made independently of the invoice being posted. The blue items are down payments and the orange items may be, for example, manual payments or direct debits which still need to be allocated. Not shown in the slide, but you can jump to display balances and manage supplier line items using the Opening button at the bottom right. You can view the open payments by different dimensions such as company code, supplier, currency, and user. The automatic and manual payments app, F1749, is similar to the payment analysis app, but showing payments made with and without the automatic payment program. You can show the payments by company code, supplier, currency, and user. Not shown in the slide, but in the bottom left of the app is a button to refresh the report to update it. In this app, Monitor Purchase Order Items F2358, you can see the quantities and values to be invoiced and delivered, as well as the material and line item details, whereas the Manage Purchase Order report shows the total purchase order. There are a number of apps that behave in a similar way and have this similar three-part structure. The interesting thing about this sort of app is that you can toggle between a normal filter and a chart filter. And also you can click on an item in the chart and just see the related items in the table below. Payment reports such as F1749, which is the analysis of the automatic and manual payments, and app F1750, which is the analysis of open payments, use the posting keys to identify payments. Mostly the posting key is automatically assigned in the transaction, but in case a manual posting is made using certain GUI transactions, you need to be careful to use the correct posting key. Down payments are identified in these reports by the special GL transaction type A, and automatic payments are all payments posted by the Manage Automatic Payments app F0770 or by the GUI transaction F110. This is perhaps for more advanced users, but you can run ad hoc reports using the query browser app F1068. I'll do a quick demonstration. In the overview page, I will first select the aging analysis view for accounts payable. By clicking on the box on the left-hand side, and then select the Open for Analysis button in the bottom right. I can adjust the criteria in the pop-up if I want, but I will select OK for now. This will open the view in a multi-dimensional screen, which makes it easy for me to arrange the layout how I want. Next, I will filter by my company code OF01 by adding the company code to the filter bar. Next, I'll move the aging grid to the columns and the supplier dimension to the rows. I can expand to full screen to see better. I could also use different dimensions in the rows and columns, and I could change the decimal point and scaling by right-clicking in the Amount column. By right-clicking in the Supplier column, there are more options to explore. For example, I could change the way the supplier number and text are displayed, and hide rows which only have zeros, as well as use the attribute option to add in a lot of other fields related to the supplier, but not in the dimensions. For example, the country. As usual, you have the option to export to Excel, etc., as well as use various charts, and there's a Settings button with more options. Another thing you can do is right-click on a number and define conditions for that column, such as equal to, less than, or greater than to a specific value, or the top 10 items, bottom 5%, and so on. Although some of the information is available in other apps, sometimes this is easier to use and has some additional options. There are also other views in the query browser that you can use. For example, future payables, invoice processing, payments analysis, etc. Thank you very much for following this tutorial. I hope that you found it useful. My contact details are on the slide, and you can also find me on LinkedIn.